World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
This is Kier Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Good afternoon. Tony Rogers here, your host for Urbanology, the Art of War. It was an interesting day today. We had some changes in our actual show format, and I would like to thank Aisha Saku, who is a wonderful person. She is the founder of Street Corner Resources, and for years they have been the ones who have worked with the gangs, the youth, the homeless, and the like. And she's always out there whenever something is happening. If there's someone that's got shot or someone is missing, she has kind of like a SWAT van that she's in, and she tends to be in those places, but I was trying to get her, but she wasn't able to get on. And nevertheless, there was a couple of other people, but I have a young lady who's working with me in Urbanology Systems as an administrative assistant. And we were on a couple of Zoom calls, so I asked her, would she be on the show? She probably has wasn't prepared for it at all, but she thinks well on her feet, and hanging with me probably will have to get used to some of these things. So I call her my guardian angel because she is an angel, and her first name, and many of you know me and know my writing, so when I understood the meaning of her first name, which was K-E for kinetic energy, and C-H-I, which is chi, and Ra for Amun Ra, and my understanding about that. So it's hard for me to call her Angel with such a wonderful name that sometimes uh, I don't get correct, and I will make sure that I constantly do that. And if I had known she was going to be on, I would have rehearsed a little bit. But I'm going to try Kachira, uh, Angel, and Itatu. I
Thank
know you're
you.
laughing at me. I know.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you.
But I am definitely trying. I didn't know that we were going to be on today, else I would have rehearsed because I wouldn't want to embarrass myself, you know.
No worries.
But that's the only reason why I guess we had to, working together because I guess you understand. But nevertheless, thanks for being a filler. There's a number of things we're working on. February the 6th. But before we get into that, let the people know a little bit about you.
Oh, where to begin? um, I'm Harlem. I live and work in Harlem. I support the community and I want to see this place thrive. I want other people from around the world to know that Harlem is a place that you can come, live, grow, work, and thrive. So anything that the community is doing, anything that Tony is doing, it's just in line with the vision and the goal and the purpose for what I'm here to do. So I'm super excited about this month. Uh, and I think me and Tony will unpack some of those for you and just let you know what you need to know, what's happening in Harlem. So come on down and visit.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. There is a clinic that's opening on February the 6th. It's the first of its time is MetaLink, uh, the MetaLink MedPod Wellness Clinic, and MetaLink and MedPod are terms that are associated with a new technology of telemedicine. It's actually telediagnostic medicine, and the first office of its kind will be in Harlem. And one of the is I started to recruit my dear angel. One of the first tasks in operations is to see how this operation is going to work. So she, as of now, we'll know by February the 7th, based on after the 6th. But the plan is the angel will be there to kind of look at how it's going and kind of develop an understanding as to where it may be going. And Angel, give the viewers a little bit about your history, which is why I'm confident that you are in that position, even though you might not like me because of that. But tell uh, people what you were doing in the past, especially in operations.
Okay. Yeah, I've been an operational manager in hospitality. Um, Downtown, if you've heard of Fotografiska, it's a photography museum. They're from, I want to say Sweden. And they recently closed the New York location, but anything that brings tourism into New York, I try to be a part of. And I try to be a part of anything that gives wellness back to our community. I recently did the opening of the Renaissance Hotel here in Harlem on 125th. Um, After that, I did the opening for what was next? The Apollo Theater, the Victoria Theater stages are open within that building as well. We open those. Um, Native Harlem over there, where uh, Tony, what's the name of the theater? Um,
Magic Johnson Theater.
Magic Johnson. How can I forget that? Right in that building, a beautiful facility has been open with Native Harlem. If anyone has heard about Legos,
They're that's their second location, so they're collaborating on
They
their
have another
project.
one in Brooklyn, Native Harlem in Brooklyn.
Absolutely. And what else is opening?
Well, the Meadowlink MedPart
And now
Wells.
meddling. So I'm super excited about this because everything's digital now. So having a system in place in our community where our community members can go and take care of their health and wellness, I think that's a big advancement for Harlem. So I'm
Yeah,
excited to
and
see it.
we just need to do what is necessary in order to make it happen. Now, the other thing that's going on is on February the 19th, the Harlem Tourism Board will have its first networking meeting at the Renaissance Hotel, which uh, will be one of the major locations as far as meetings for the Harlem Tourism Board because the Renaissance Hotel is a corporate sponsor, which is usually how it goes. Hotels and tourism related events tend to work together with organizations to promote tourism. So that probably you'll be getting information about that before long, and even probably on our next show we'll talk about that. But that's another event. We're doing some planning on that on this Saturday, and there's something I can't talk too much about because we
Uh-oh.
haven't really put it in together. But thanks to Kayla Marte, who is the executive director of the Harlem Tourism Board, we received a grant. We have to let people know where it's going to be and when it's going to be. We have some thoughts. We're going to kind of iron that out. But the grant is focused on the Harlem tourism and hospitality industry. And it's in many cases the way it's written, and Kayla did this, and we hadn't talked about it, but the way she wrote it was something that is already happening, you know, because she wrote it to indicated that in conjunction with the governor's office, and and she wasn't really aware that some time ago the governor Hochul had I think it was almost 2 years ago a press conference announcing a state initiative to bring African and Caribbean Americans to the state of New York. Because there are a lot of things in New York State. Uh, Niagara Falls is where the Underground Railroad, that's how they were able to get to Canada through the Niagara Falls. So there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of historic stuff, and many different places throughout New York State as relates to historic, cultural stuff is really hasn't really been promoted as much as it should. However, when I was at the press conference, everybody knew, and I knew also, that if you promote this, Harlem is going to get a fair share of people wanting to come, especially with new a couple of hotels coming in and all of that. So the grant really talks about a continuing of that, when it's going to be sometime, spring, summer, and that will begin to allow for people to understand how important Harlem tourism and hospitality can be as an economic development component to the Harlem quality of life. But Angel, you went to Morgan State.
I did. Go Bears.
My son, my 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 grandson, and my granddaughter went to Morgan State. So the HM, you know, the youths are beginning to get a lot of a lot of play. What did you do there? What was some of the things that you
Oh
did
wow.
there to bring you to where you are now?
Okay. Uh, hmm. Okay, so I
That you
was
could say,
that I can actually say right. So I was one of those people who wanted to study everything. So freshman year, I started with a double major. I did biology and I did sociology. By my sophomore year, I realized that with everything else I had going on, I had to kind of streamline, had to pick one. So I ended up sticking with sociology, but then my concentration was in biostatistics. So urbanology essentially is what I did in college. I was a research assistant and a teacher's assistant. So we did a lot of research. Um, actually, in line with a lot of the work that Dr. Siku is doing. We did falsely accused teens. We did research about the disproportionate minority contact with the juvenile justice system and just the recidivism rate. So just kind of being involved in that type of research and then being at a college that's historically Black within an urban community, I branched out into community service. I did pageants, Miss Black and Gold. It was just amazing to actually do the work that I was studying, and then after graduation, be able to jump right into it in a melting pot of culture like New York and
Mhm.
Harlem.
Well, again, there's a lot of stuff that we are coming to. I would say almost the midway of the second Harlem Renaissance. In 1974, the first day of Harlem Day, the theme was the beginning of the Harlem Renaissance, and and which was celebrated this last year for its 50th anniversary. So in 50 years, you know, there's old wine and new bottles, but there has been, changes. I mean, 125th Street in 1974, um, the only things that were in the stores were people who were sleeping in them because they were all vacant.
Yeah.
Liquor stores on every other block. And then as it started to change, then there was banks on every other block, but you still couldn't get loans for
Yeah.
housing. There was still redlining. But now, you know, we are, I guess, at the halfway point. And I say that is because there's still a lot that has to be done as relates to whether it's with the elected officials, the leadership, or what have you, because we're still kind of like in a have and have not type situation. There are people who, especially now, based on some of the things that I try not to even look at the news much anymore, even though I have to be aware of stuff. But
It's tough.
but you know, many of the things, many of uh, the areas that have allowed for people to survive in many cases are going to be challenged. And that's another reason why things like tourism, things that we can do ourselves, like the soul cities of the world, these are going to be things that are going to be very, very um, important because that's going to be our source. That's going to, while they're there, there probably will be ways created to try to keep us from having these types of dialogues and communications. But while we still have it, we have to make sure we support a Soul City, Harlem Community News, and all of the publications that tell our story because they're trying to change our story,
Yeah.
erasing stuff from the books. Even probably you were fortunate going to HBCU
Yeah.
because at least they had been focused on culture.
Yeah.
if that's not the case, you're in trouble if you want to find out about who you are, unless, with information technology and all of that. But nevertheless, where are you seeing yourself in the future? What are some of the things? If you had a crystal ball, what would you do besides being working with urbanology systems?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Because I love adventure and I know globalization has its drawbacks, but I love it. I love the interconnectedness and being able to have community that's not just here in Harlem, but worldwide. So I see a lot of traveling in my future. If we could take what we're doing here and bring it to other communities that resonate with some of our challenges and actually bring them solutions. Like imagine this MedPod or MetaLink clinic, and what could that do in different communities? Can that actually make a difference? So sky's the limit for me. I'm just excited to be witnessing history, honestly. And anything I can do in the
Well,
meantime,
well,
I'm just
well.
thrilled.
You're definitely in some of the second Harlem Renaissance history, and you're absolutely right. One of the reasons, even though it's been a headache, I realized the significance of a med pod. And one of the videos that I saw was it was in an African village, and people were being treated and by doctors who were miles and miles away, from them, and some not even in the same country. And that's a very interesting thing. And also, when we talk about, and that's a village in Africa, but even here, in Harlem, uh, many people are not aware about the things about themselves that they should be.
Yeah.
From a holistic standpoint, it seems that sometimes people only go to the doctor when they get sick,
Yeah.
but you are really supposed to really try to be proactive, not reactive. And one of the interesting things about this Metalake uh, or MedPod technology that will be on 144th Street is that if you have insurance, Medicare, all of those basic insurance components, you can go in there and get an examination, and if there is something that you need to see a specialist for, you can do that, and you don't have to wait, 3, 4 months before you can see a specialist. So uh, those types of opportunities that only really well-off people can afford to do will be there. It's just how do people find out about it? That's one of the reasons why you're here, Angel. You're going to have to be an angel because you're going to have to figure out how an office as important as that can be received by the community, and to understand how that works. But and if it, um, I I don't. I saw something about a flyer. I wish I did have the ability to show a flyer, but I don't have any because I gave them all out. Uh, and I but the you can, if anyone is interested, you can send me an email at urbanologysystems@gmail.com. You can email Matt as relates to that, or call 917-821-7099, and you can text me and I can text you information. But this office, and what's important about it, and it hasn't really been promoted as well as it should, but just to be able to go into a place in your neighborhood,
Yeah.
and get a full examination, and have that those records on a system so that if need be, you can speak to a specialist, you can speak to people who you would never be able, doctors who are in these networks are almost untouchable based on, even if you have insurance, of the cost. But that's something that can happen. And not only in Harlem, but it can happen in Ghana. As you know, I'm doing a lot of work in Ghana, and one of the things that we're starting to talk about is how to get that type of technology there. Because if you are ill in certain parts of Harlem or Ghana, it's not always easy to get to the hospital, you know, and it's a lot of money, to EMS, especially if you're in a nursing home. EMS, you're there at a late night. There's no doctors there. They might have to admit you. That's more money. Insurance is paying. Where these devices can be taken to someone's house if they need to. They even have some of the devices that you can put on as a backpack, which I think will be big in the military at some point. And you have a way to get people's their vitals, do EKG, all of those types of things, and you can take it. It's mobile. There's a mobile component of it at any rate. So that's why even though it's a headache, kind of dealing with people who perhaps think that they know more about your community than you do, but uh, it's important to try to overcome some of those differences to try to see whether or not this can work. And that's why um, I am happy that Angel, the ancestors sent me an angel to kind of look at that to try to
Hey.
see how that works out. But and we're Harlem. We're talking about tourism board and there's a lot of stuff that's happening, but we have to start looking at how to come together with a lot of different things.
Yeah.
We talk about the elections and 47 and all of those types of things, but the bottom line is that I truly believe that all things happen for a reason, and there's a reason for all things. I suppose sometimes those reasons may be hard to understand, especially if they're not pleasant reasons. But I think we are in the age of Aquarius. Matter of fact, I just wrote an article about the fact that we're in the age of Aquarius.
Tony, what does that mean?
Huh? What does
What does
that mean?
age of the Aquarius mean for people who aren't tapped in?
What it means is we're in a time where truth is becoming very, very paramount in all of the things that we do. Uh, it's an age of uh, a certain type of a wisdom. We have been for many centuries in a materialistic mindset as far
Yeah.
as motivation. This whole age of Aquarius, which people started talking about it. There was songs about it, all of those things in the '60s, because that was the freedom that people saw that they was having, but it wasn't really there. Took, there was an alignment of planets in 2000 that kind of dealing with Saturn and the alignment of it, and many people in the science saw that as the beginning of this new age, a new age of looking inside rather than outside for happiness and satisfaction, an age of truth. And since COVID created a real understanding of what needs to happen um, in order to protect yourself. There was a time before the vaccine came about that no one knew why people were getting sick. But one thing that people also were able to understand was that if your immune system is strong and your body is not acidic and it is alkaline, the chances of you getting sick are a lot better than if your body is not strong. Your immune system is not strong, and that gave a lot of wellness practitioners, myself included, an interesting platform because I did a, I wrote a story about, well, what do you do when the doctors don't know what to do, you know, and and for us, especially people of color, there are times where we had no doctors anyway, and
Yeah.
we had to. I was raised in the South as a youngster. Came to New York when I was 5. Parents sit me down as soon as I was born down south, and I don't ever remember going to a doctor when I was. There was always this lady. If you had something, they had something that they could give you, and if you had a cold, there was stuff that you could, make. I do remember cod liver oil and castor
Oh, I
oil
do too.
and Vicks on my chest and all those types of things.
Yes.
But I used to hate castor oil, and they then tried to fool me, and they would put castor oil in orange juice. And for a long time, I could not drink orange juice because
You didn't trust it. You're like,
I was always feeling with that castor oil. But the bottom line is, we were healthy.
exactly.
So when the pandemic came, people had to turn to something. And so the things that we were talking about food, diet, and alkaline water, and treatments, key treatments, which that became a way that people were able to help themselves.
Mm.
And I, at one point, I created a program, the Harlem Holistic Wellness Week, and it after when COVID came, that dropped. But then last year, it was the Uptown Grand Central. They did a wellness event in Marcus Garvey Park, and
Yeah.
I was amazed. There's so many new wellness groups in Upper
So many
Manhattan.
practitioners. Yeah.
There's so many of them, and I said, "Wow." I just haven't. Maybe Kayla, that may be something else we'll have to talk about, because we did Wellness Week for many years, and the whole idea was the last Saturday in in April, and the first Saturday in May was Wellness Week. And the reason why the last Saturday in April was chosen is because that's World Tai Chi Chi Kong Day. So people all over the world,
Mm.
between 10 and 12, they uh, do meditation and exercises. And there's a whole thing about a group therapy, not group therapy, but when a large number of people do the same thing at the same time, it has energy that goes out. So and so we would have stores doing specials. We would have different type of demonstrations on the days and expos. Matter of fact, maybe next year I was thinking about doing a wellness expo in the Renaissance Hotel.
Oh, that'd be
Uh,
nice.
but the bottom line is that sparked, and going back to, as far as this age of Aquarius, things happen to kind of drive information technology.
Yeah.
Information technology. I did not know what Zoom was. Zoom to me was what the rooster would, when in the cartoons they would say Zoom across the screen. that that was the only Zoom that I understand. So, but if it wasn't for that, I couldn't go into the studio, and Soul City with their technology said, well, why don't we just do um, our WACR on Soul City? So now, as we're speaking on WACR radio, there's a show that because I couldn't go into the studio, so I used to have to pre-record that on Mondays. So I pre-recorded the show on Monday, and it's playing as we speak. And
Wow.
and things, and there was 2 markets that developed.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to and one more thing to do, but it's amazing because you touch a lot of people, and
Yeah.
that with the Harlem Community News, the piece, the urbanology piece that I right there, it gives me the opportunity to communicate a lot of stuff, and based on the things that are happening with the tourism board and Harlem Week and all of those types of things, what they're doing is they're building a foundation for hopefully us, but it may be for someone else, which is why, you know, I tried to get as much information as I can through these vehicles, recruit people like you who can kind of maintain what has happened. It took a lot of work to get to where we are. You
Yeah.
know, it took a lot of work to get the Renaissance Hotel or the
A lot
street.
of work.
You know, at one point, 125th Street from river to river had trolley tracks on it, and all of that stuff had to be um, taken up.
Yeah.
And at that point, we talked about the community board. I was the chair of the Economic Development Committee of Community Board 10, and my brother Lloyd Williams, he was the chairperson. And there were problems because what stores were there when they started digging up these trolley tracks, they turned off the water, they turned off the electricity, and nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So it was at the community board we came together and we brought all of the fire department and created a manual uh, for communicating and doing that. And that manual still was used for the city because then they started having water main breaks. But it was
Yeah.
the same thing because that was what was happening when they was trying to pull up the tracks. The water main would break. So that was one of the things that came out of Community Board 10 as chair of the Economic Development Committee. And it was real simple. It's the whole urbanology concept. You bring all of the people together and come up with a schedule of a time. If you're going to turn off the water at this particular time, you let the beauty shop know,
Yeah.
so that they know that they can't do certain things then. And it was kind of like common sense, but common sense is not always that common. So, but these are the things that Soul City, all of this stuff that takes place, I try to, as much as I can, get people on my show at least, and I know it's all over, but at least with mine, I guess because I'm kind of like the senior piece. I've been around the corner more than most of the people who are here. So I know the people who actually has, were probably not famous or but they are the ones who really made stuff happen, and it's a way to kind of give them their shine because it's not a Lloyd Williams or a Tony Rogers or Dave. You know, it was a lot of people to make certain things happen. And as we write the story of the Second Harlem Renaissance, it's important to make sure that those people are there. And well, you know, since we didn't have a script,
It's all right. It's all related.
we 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 have to try to put some things together.
Yeah.
You know, as it relates to all of that stuff is good, but you know, people have to do things, which is in my view as the things that I see important is to try to develop uh, more focuses on economic development and creating a way that we don't. Well, the government is not going to give us too much more anyway. But
Yeah.
if we can find ways, and tourism is a wonderful way, because there's so many different types of opportunities if you have an organized tourism and hospitality industry that kind of talks with each other as far as the restaurants and the restaurants hire people, the security for hotels, all of those people came through Harlem Week in many cases, and that's just one example. So as far as job development, economic development initiative, the Harlem tourism and hospitality industry is going to be very important.
Yeah.
Uh, the real thing is how do you kind of organize those things so that they can feed off of each other, and not only people who are from outside of the community, but people who live in Washington Heights who never have gone to West Harlem, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
or people
real.
who are East Harlem who've never been to
The
uh,
Apollo.
yeah, yeah, because you worked on the and and because actually, if there are four community boards, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and if we talk about tourism, if there was an intermingling, because each one of those uh,
Yeah.
uh, community board 10 is what most people
Yeah.
understand. That's where the Apollo, that's where all of the stuff is. And then 9 is over, on the west side, Columbia University, all of those different types of things. Uh, uh, 11 is East Harlem and all of that culture. And then 12 is Washington Heights and all of that. If those four boroughs were intermingling and started understanding the culture and the things that were, and started going to the restaurants, I don't remember the last time I went to a restaurant in Washington Heights, and there are many of them.
Yeah.
So we could create our own economic development opportunity if that's promoted, which is what I would like to do at some point in the future with the goharlem.org website to kind of make it like a one-stop shop where all of the different restaurants, and there's some way so that people can look at it and order for and see what the restaurants are about or if events are
I think
taking
that's
place.
great.
So, and you've had some work. You did some work with websites, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. I've
What
built
what what have you done?
uh,
I'm glad that we have this interview because now we're finding out stuff.
a live interview
Right.
broadcasting. Thanks, Tony.
Well, that's what the ancestors did. I mean, it wasn't planned this way, but that's the way it ended.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I've done a lot of the work that I started in website development was because, like you, I'm like, okay, there's a thing that I want to do, and there's a bunch of information attached to it. How can I get out this information so people can find it usable, find it easily, be able to reference it, it's user friendly, things like that. So I started coming up with like just different small personal brands. I've launched like e-commerce sites, um,
Or what?
e-commerce. So like there's a company called Afro Ethos,
Mm-hmm.
actually founded in Harlem, and they create apparel that resonates with the story of the African diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
So with them, same thing. We had a conversation. They're like, we're doing this, that, and a third. I'm like, okay, great. Where can I find this? And there really wasn't a place to find it. So we went and kind of cultivated a way that they could look for the story. You can shop, things like that. So I think that's just fun for me to kind of help connect people with the resources that they're looking for, or just give information that's exciting, so they would want to kind of click through and explore, and just that element of adventure. um, and then again, like you said, if you're going further north, there's so many new restaurants over there. I went to like a hookah lounge over there. There's just so much
Yeah,
going
I,
on.
I, I went there once in Harlem.
But things like that, we could talk about our experience there, and let people know that that's there, because I had no idea. It was a customer that told me, and I was like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
So I think that'll be great to kind of unite the four boards, just as Harlem, and bring that unity. And then also, as far as tourism, letting people know who are visiting, this is what you can do in Harlem. This is where you can learn. This is where you can shop. This is where, a lot of people figure out things about the Apollo, but once they start clicking through, they're like, oh, I got to go Ticketmaster. You know what I mean? So just kind of streamlining that experience for everyone, giving them direct links and access. I think it would just help with the overall mission of what we're trying to do.
Plus, software, because I experienced this in travels where, and I'm not even sure whether it's happening. You might know it's about the hotel.
Okay.
If people are in their room in a hotel, why can't they order from local businesses food? I know that there's Grubhub and all of those types of things, but I forgot where it was, but I was able to reserve a table in a
Mm-hmm.
restaurant
Mm-hmm.
on online on my TV set.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. So they give you the QR code. I think that's super beneficial, especially let's use the Renaissance as an example. They have breakfast and then they have lunch, and then it's kind of like a closing period before dinner. So if you're hungry or you're just getting there and it's only like, let's say, fries or, bar bites, something like that, but you want like a full on dinner,
hmm
it's helpful when you go in your room that all the resources are just there for you. You know about the Red Roosters, the Sylvias, if you want the good soul food, the brunch
now do
experience.
you is that happening, or that's something that would be a good idea to happen?
When we first started, it's my understanding that that was happening.
hmm
Um, it would be contingent based upon the relationships with the other restaurants.
Right.
Um, because technically we wanted to have like a group, like you have Restaurant Row, things like that. One of the things that happened at the hotel is you want to educate people, visitors, about what else they can experience in the neighborhood. So that's definitely something that I think we implemented. I don't know if it's something that's still active. I would have to go in and check.
hmm
But it's pretty standard. If you go into any other locale to
Right.
visit, they like, okay, go here for breakfast. If you want to rock climb, they have all the things for you to kind of build out your own itinerary.
hmm
But sometimes in Harlem, we forget our
Yeah,
neighbors,
because
what's
there's
in
a
our
rock
backyard.
climbing place right across the.
It is, and it's
Yeah,
amazing.
actually, I think, yeah, I'm going to meet with Andy just to kind of ask some of those questions. It didn't dawn on me, but was there, and I have his card. I have to uh, call him up just to check. And of course, JP is on
On
the
the Marriott
HTB
side.
board. So
So I
it's
would
really the
definitely,
Victoria that does that stuff. It's not on the management side.
right.
But
Yes.
but those are the types of things that when we deal with this grant to do a symposium or whatever it is that will enhance the tourism and hospitality industry,
Yeah.
these are the types of things that can be on panel discussions or recommended so that hopefully
Absolutely.
can be follow up as to, well, how can we use what we have in order to work with each other, which is the whole idea of urbanology. Urbanology is that concept, is that you have a large number of people have different mindsets or agendas, but usually there's a common denominator that everybody,
Yeah.
can, which is how Harlem Week. There's one common denominator. If you promote Harlem, there's some way that I can benefit from that because
Yeah.
I'm in Harlem. You know,
Yep.
that's the same with tourism. If there's a way to have some sort of entity with integrity to promote or to go out there to make those things happen, why not? Which leads us to what else are we going to talk about?
We got like 15 minutes. We're doing good. Let's see. We can talk about, let's say there's a young person in the community. They're about to graduate high school and they don't believe that there's opportunity to work and thrive in their neighborhood. So then that young person with all this potential leaves Harlem. Number one, what do we think about that? We want them to go and get alternate experiences, things like that. But at the same time, communities, we like to bring the wealth back into the community.
Mm.
So for a young person, how do we kind of let them know that you are also represented in this community and there's opportunities here for you?
Mm.
How do we get them on board with urbanology and just having this kind of connectivity?
Well, perhaps more the tourism board than urbanology. However, urbanology is something that can be used in order to stimulate a number of different things. We're talking about education, and
Yeah.
the, the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce has been an entity that has followed this urbanology concept because you have the churches,
Yeah.
the educational institutions, the banks, entrepreneurs, and then you have the municipal, the police, the elected officials, and all of those types of things. So it's really finding ways to utilize that and have some sort of vehicle. Probably, that's what it's interesting. When I was at City College and revised the continuing the continuing and educational studies, it was basically doing that, creating a way for young people to hear people that are like them, to understand that there are things that can happen, because a lot of the stuff, I mean, Silicon Harlem does that very
Mhm.
well. Young, it's just that they have to be approached. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not that they don't want to, but sometimes it's just hard to get past, especially if we're talking about young people who you got to get them early, because
Yeah.
the public schools, they do a job on some of these kids. I when I had my wellness clinic, I used to treat a lot of teachers, and they would tell me about kids that are like in the fourth grade that had to be on their meds, and if they weren't on their meds, they would act out,
Yeah.
and it was hard for me to kind of digest. If you're that young and you have to, the only way that to keep you from, and it's just being hyper, it's it's not anything other than that. And if you had something that you can channel that into,
Yeah.
you could do that. But if you don't have anything to do that, all you want to do is to have you sit down and not do anything. When you come off of that, you're gonna go crazy. You're gonna act out unless you take it again.
Yeah.
And if you're in the fourth grade, what's gonna happen when you get to college, or if you can get to college? What's gonna happen when you get to high school? And
Yeah.
you've been doing that for such a long time, so it and I don't have the answer to that, but the idea is that people who are doing, and I like to support many of the groups that are working with young people,
Yeah.
trying to help them overcome some of this stuff, like the Silicon Harlems and many of the different types of organizations, because it's important. Because once high school is over and you become in that type of structure, and you're not in college and you can't get a job,
Yeah. It's kind of
you
free
know,
falling.
what else is it to do? And that's where a lot of people, and that's where some of the hopelessness and negativity comes from.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you're in a society where you fear your own children. It's bad, and at night, most people, if you're walking down the street and you see about 5 or 6 young people on the corner, you
Yeah.
might cross the street, you know, and that's a kind of reality, and it sparks other things, but can't solve the world, but we can try to help people at one step at a time, and I believe, at least from what I've been doing for many years, I believe the, the concept of creating things like tourism programs, or programs that people can actually be in their community, work in their community, and be successful. We were able to get a lot of people in the Renaissance. As you know, a lot of people left for whatever the reasons. So on one side, on the hotel side, there's still people, I'm proud to say, that are still there and have developed
Agreed.
because it made sense. They were from the community. So even with Harlem Week, the security 5-star, they're there, but they worked with Harlem Week for many years. So they were from the community, and by being in the martial arts and you training the hardheads know who you are. So matter of fact, the hardheads are working with you. So everybody else, who they are, and that's how you get peace. That's how
Yeah.
you do that. But there are many things, Angel, that are happening, and one of the things, I guess, to end with that, one of my goals for 2025 and beyond is to begin to figure out a way to to reinitiate the whole Pan Africanism
Love
concept,
that.
and find ways to allow for an economic development exchange between. And at this point, uh, it Ghana has become my home away from home, in a sense, and it I just feel blessed to be able to. I mean, some people have never gone to the motherland, which I always laugh with some of the brothers, because you got some brothers that got dashikis, man, and they look more African than the Africans,
Yeah.
which is what when I'm there, some of my buddies, they say, you Americans, y'all got more Africans than us. We trying to, you know, why don't you come? But there are ways now, and I have been blessed with, especially in Ghana, to begin to develop ways to develop economic development opportunities for business persons of color here to
Good.
work with businesses and institutions in Ghana. So that's kind of my swan song. I spent a lot of time dealing with Harlem and its development and many of the things we were talking about since 1974. There's been a lot of stuff that has taken place in 50 years.
Wow.
you know, you know, you know, you can imagine that. Imagine what has happened in your life in the short time that you've been around.
Yeah.
We're close to 50, uh, so I truly believe, for me, my next journey in this lifetime, anyway, is to begin to find ways to allow for that connection to reconnect. Um, I know when I was in Ghana recently, one of the things that we were talking about is that we left as slaves, but we're coming back, to kind of, you know, recreate what had been taken away from us. And that's what I realized when I went to Ghana, especially in northern Tamale. Many people are not familiar with that, but if you really want to understand what Africa was like before the Portuguese and everybody came in, there are villages in Tamale that can give you that flavor, and that captivated me. And we're working together on a number of programs. And in December, and this is going to be soon, hopefully by the next show, December 2025, the Cultural Oneness Festival will be in the northern part of Ghana, in Tamale. And
Wow.
a number of different countries that are coming together to celebrate oneness using music and fashion and art and all of those types of things. But we will have the information before the end of Black History Month. Matter of fact, as I was saying, which is my, I guess, ending plug. I have a distant cousin who I write about as the father of Black History Month. You know, my mother's maiden name was Woodson, and and actually next week I'm going to revise. I always revise this article during Black History because a lot of people don't know this history. So I just as a family thing, I just write it again. But Carter Woodson was a distant cousin, and there's a lot of information. When I was down south, I didn't realize it then, but there was a lot of information that kind of passed over my head that I'm just catching up with. But whatever you experience stays there.
Yeah.
It's just that when it comes, and it's just like it's in a compartment. But when it comes out, you say, "Oh
You're like,
yeah."
it's waiting on you until you're ready.
Right. So
I
I'll
love
write about that, but I, want to make sure that this is my first show with about Black history, and I guess that's fitting because in the many cases I am Black.
that. Living embodiment of it. I love it.
As far as
I'm
the
honored.
stuff that I've been doing for the last 60 years. So, um, uh, thank you for. We didn't have anything planned. I think this was a great show for you just knowing when we were on a Zoom call. I said, "Can you do this?"
I'm like, sure.
And you said, "Of
That's
course."
life sometimes. I'm
And
so
that's
thankful.
and that's the way it goes, and that's what the ancestors did. I don't always have the chance to talk about things that we were talking about, so sometimes that's good. And plus, now it's history because it's recorded on Soul City. So, you know,
Yeah.
whenever people talk about things that's going to happen in the future, we know that certain things were talked about first here on Soul City. Uh,
You
and I
heard it
think
first.
Soul City and Matt and Jasmine and everybody for providing the platform in order to do that. And Angel, you are my angel.
Thank
I
you, Tony.
appreciate
It's
it.
been such
It
a
was,
pleasure.
it was a good name, and I look forward to working with you. You might, not necessarily look forward to working with me because there's a lot of stuff that's going on. But I think you could, you think well on your feet. So I guess you can hang for a minute. Hopefully, hopefully I can hang for a minute. But nevertheless, thank you. I appreciate you coming on in such a short notice, and thank you, Matt, for making things happen as you always do, Mr. Magic. Matt is like the Wizard of Oz. He's behind. He's making all of the stuff going on, and thanks for people who take the time to watch our show every Tuesday from 4 to 5 on Urbanology, and we'll start looking at some other things. And speaking of Ghana, before the end of the month, there's a brother I want to have. He's from Alabama, but he's a chief, and he has land in Ghana, and he's developing land. Martin Glenn. So I want to have him on. When we talk about Black history, I want to go past slavery. You know,
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the ending. My last comment on Black history is that if you say that you're African American, that means your heritage goes back to about 400 and 400 or 500 years. But if you say that you're an African born in America, your heritage goes back to the beginning of time. So I always change that. You're not African American, you're an African that was born in America. And if we can do that, we'll awaken the diaspora. Thank you, my dear. Thanks. And thank you, Matt. This is probably about it, but it was a good show that we just put together. I
We did
appreciate
it.
it.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll definitely get that information for the grand opening on the 6th.
Right, right. Go to Soul City, Urbanology Systems at gmail.com, 917-821-7099, and you can, I'll send you the link. But February the 6th, 144th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard on the corner, the Meadowlink Clinic. And it's from 4 to 7. Take care. And for those who are interested in the Harlem Tourism Board, we'll be at the hotel February the 19th from 6:30 to 8 as a mix of mango. So thank you. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.